Welcome. This is the final and last entry of the Natural Law and Regenerative Economies series. This is the Law of Inspired Action, and I'm here with Charles and Hemant tonight. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's the next step. To me, what inspired action means, what the law of inspired action means is, what is the next right thing? What are you inspired to do next? Where is the energy moving you? So we're going to talk about six different invitations tonight that were inspired by the last conversation, the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. So before I get into that, I just want to remind anyone watching this that if you are a member of the Karmic Margin Call Project Time Bank, just log the hours that you're spending watching this material. This will probably be about an hour and a half conversation tonight. So you can log that in as a service you are providing, and you can put that under the category of workshops, presentations, and tutorials. So we're just going to say hi to Charles and Hemant quick, but before I do that, I just also want to mention that tonight's conversation is sponsored by Easier Ways. So I will put a link up to Easier Ways on this page as well too. Randy might be joining us here in a little bit, but I've just been very inspired by a lot of Randy's writing lately. And we'll talk a little bit about establishing the living library, how to have a living library conversation, and he had expressed a lot about how every voice matters. And that's what we want to honor, is that every voice really does matter and that everybody has value. And tonight we'll be talking about what are the next steps to really kind of all share and redistribute global wealth through universal basic income. So let's start with Hemant. Hemant, how are you doing tonight? What would you like someone who might be watching this for the first time or who might have been through this journey with us the whole time? What would you like to say tonight? What's alive for you?
Yeah, whenever a living library conversation comes, I tend to be quite excited. I always come here to learn something new, and I will eventually learn something that points which direction I need to go through in my life, right?
Mhm.
Every conversation is guiding us to somewhere we need to go,
Yeah,
and we get a clarity of where we are going through every conversation. That's
yeah.
why I'm excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to what comes up next.
Great. Thank you, Hemant. Yes, and we're excited that you're here with us. And yes, every conversation is leading somewhere. That's the cause and effect. So, what happens today, there will be an effect. There will be there will be something, a ripple that is perpetuated after tonight. So thank you. Charles, how are you tonight? What is alive for you?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel pretty good. I'm always anticipating, I guess, and kind of just learning to listen.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm I'm kind of like uh feeling like uh, I'm not really ready for it to be ending yet, but that I'm sure there'll be more to it. Um, and like one thing leads to another. So I'm always interested in seeing what the next thing is going to be, but I'm trying to still stay very present at the same time.
Great. Thank you, Charles. And I'll put a little bit of this context in as well too. Charles and I are part of a spiritual community here in the Greater Philadelphia area. We both serve on the board of that organization. So I'm not going to say too much about it because I'd like to bring this project to them, but there's still some conversations that need to happen before this project is introduced to that spiritual community or that interspiritual community. But I'd like to give you permission, Charles, to be able to discuss and to talk about to talk about your experiences and especially our shared experiences as this conversation goes on tonight. All right, so a little bit of a background as to where we've been so far. In October, when we did the first four natural laws, I introduced the concept of a living library. And the living library is really just having a conversation with somebody and reflecting back what you appreciate, what resonates. We also call these appreciation conversations. And if anything comes up that feels uncomfortable, or if something just does not resonate, then we encourage you to ask clarifying questions, to get underneath the surface. So we introduced the living library concept back in October. So if you want to look at the first four recordings, that's really how we start the conversation. And the first thing you do is you have conversations with people who are already resonating with you, people who are already coming into your space. And the more you are able to develop that skill set, that deep listening, like you said, Charles, the more you are able to be able to listen and to reflect and to be able to spend that time, then that kind of builds up the brain. It kind of builds up the mind a little bit, where the confidence level starts to increase a little bit. And then you can start to reach a little bit across that barrier to someone who has, a difference of opinion or holds different values. So that's what October was focused on. Back in November, when we did the next four natural laws, I started giving a little bit of the technical information about time and the financial system. So that's more of the technical information to help you understand that everything you do matters. Every moment matters. And the more the technical information, the more you are exposed to the technical information, the more we can change the financial system, the more we can kind of change everybody's financial destiny. Because to be honest, everybody is pretty much undervalued. And the technical information with the time banking helps to kind of balance out the playing field so that everybody can share in the global wealth. And that was a lot of the pre-recorded information that I put into the group conversations. And now this month in December, we started out with the law of magnetism. So it's also been advertised as the law of attraction as well. And really what that means is like attracts like. You are attracting who you are being. Now, there's been a lot of proprietary interests or commercial interests that try to sell people on the idea that, you get what you want or you get what you focus on. But I would say that you're getting what you're being, or you're attracting who you're being. So that's really the foundation of being able to grow the living library, is that you don't have to push, you don't have to convince anybody of your worth. It's just really, who is already vibrating at your, kind of at your, I don't want to say level, but at your frequency. And that you should never have to push. You should never have to push into a world that's not right for you. I've said this a couple of times during these recordings. When you're with the right people, you can't say anything wrong. When you're with the wrong people, you can't say anything right. So at this point in the conversation, I would like to ask, and as we go through today's conversation, just ask you, who is already resonating with you? Who is already coming into your field? Who is inspired by your ideas? And who is willing to suspend judgments when they're in your, when you're in their presence and they're in your presence. After that, we did the law of compensation. So that was, for me, that was an eye opener, because I started to, in the pre-recorded material in law of compensation, I taught the accounting system on how to account for, how to change the value of time, so that everybody can share in the $1 investment that compounds upon itself 20 times. So there's a lot of technical information in there. But during that conversation, what we discussed, and Hemant, you were a part of that conversation, is if this thing were to speed up faster and you were able to receive a seven-figure income, within about 2 years or so, do you feel worth it? Do you feel like what you have to offer is of value? And my belief is that changing the financial system and creating economic equality, that's the easy part. From a fiscal perspective, from an accounting perspective, that's the easy part. The hard part is really being able to understand that you are worth it, especially if you're developing listening skills, especially if you're developing critical thinking skills and collaboration skills. And that's the one thing that I hope everybody watching this and watching this entire series will come away with, is that you are worth it. And it's just a matter of finding, what is your role? What is your place? Last week, we did the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. And that was recorded with the Eighth Flame Fellowship. My ministry colleagues, Dr. Melanie Cardone, and Kylie Stedman Gomes were involved in this conversation about kairotic flow. And the reason why I think that's important, especially when it comes to implementing universal basic income, is to help you understand what is your role, what comes easy for you, so that you can receive information from the right person and pass it to the right person. A lot of what happens in our competitive society is that we're forced into these competitive relationships where we have to convince each other of what is right or wrong, or what is the best way to do things. And what that does is it creates this illusion of scarcity. But through understanding kairotic flow, understanding the natural cycle of things, you can start to understand, what do you feel comfortable doing? Where are you most comfortable? And what is most uncomfortable for you, and where you need to look for help. And that's really all that is. So tonight is the law of inspired action, and we're going to talk about 6 different invitations that correspond with those 6 archetypes, or those 6 stages of kairotic flow. And kairotic flow is not a hierarchy. No archetype or no duties are better than the other. It's just that we're just honoring the life cycle of an initiative. We're honoring the life cycle of an organization, honoring the life cycle of manifestation, really. So, introducing myself, my name is Mike Schumann. I am an interspiritual ministry candidate. So my message is all about natural law, helping others understand universal principles so that there can be a forgiveness of all debt. And I do believe that through time banking, universal basic income is possible. So we have these living library conversations to start to see each other as equals, to start to see each other as being equally valuable, so that we get away from this hierarchy system, where there's judgments passed on people, where these judgments are like, well, if you made this money, or if you did this, or if you have this achievement, you're more valuable than this person. We're trying to get away from that. Universal principles, especially the law of divine oneness, is trying to tell us, that we're all, we're all equally valuable. You treat each other, we treat each other as we would like to be treated. So we're all divine. We're all sovereign. And really, what this entire series is about is just trying to understand why there is conflict, and how to make competitive environments into more collaborative ones. So that also ties into my healing project as a minister, where I'm trying to establish a living library so that healing can take place through the spoken word or through the written word. So deeper communication. All right, so that is my introduction, and we are going to start with a stewardship conversation. So when I had this conversation with Kylie and Melanie last week, Kylie always starts with stewardship. And the steward is someone who is protecting what is sacred, who is focused on what matters most. And the question that we were entertaining was, where is your attention going? So where do you find what is sacred? Or, this is not a where question, but what is most important to you? So this is where I'm going to open up the conversation to you, Charles, and to you, Hemant. What is most important to you? Where has your attention been, especially in the last week or two? So whoever would like to respond to that question, where has your attention been, and what is most important to you?
I would say for me, my family and health and safety.
Health and safety. Family, health, and safety. Thank you, Charles. And then, where is your attention? What is most important to you?
Yeah, I resonate with what Charles said. I've been sick for past days. I've been recovering, so health has been one of the major thing I've been concentrating my attention on.
Mhm.
And later, some of the conversation came to me is why I'm not doing what I am supposed to do, right?
Mm,
Because everyone intuitively knows that this is the thing uh, I need to do, but we are not doing the thing.
mm,
We can easily sense something, right? This is the thing we meant to do, but we are not doing that.
right.
This is the thing I'm struggling with my attention, right? I'm been focusing why I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do.
Got it. Yes. So I think as we go through these, these archetypes and the duties or the practices of each of the archetypes, my hope is that we will find what you're meant to do. Where is where is your purpose a month, and I hope we find that. If not tonight, as we continue these conversations. Another
Yeah.
thing, yeah, another thing about the steward as well too that I found in my experiences is being able to identify and practice values. Now, what do I mean by a value? So another where question is where are your values, or where do you find what is valuable? One of the resources I will share on this page is a conversations that I've had in the mental health industry. We call it the bridge. So I'm going to share some group conversations on this page as well too about how to create more power alignment in the medical field. We focus on the mental health field, but how to have conversations where peers or we call them challengers, the industry and the health industry calls them consumers. How do we create more of a power alignment with practitioners or doctors or psychologists? So I'm going to be adding that resource here as a stewardship resource. It's under the 2x2 algorithm material, so please take a look for that. But I'd like to ask both of you, what do you feel is one of your primary values? And sometimes I ask this question in a way where what does the environment need to be like for you to feel honored, respected, valued, loved? What is most important to you? And I'll ask either of you to chime in. If you had to put your finger on a value, what do you think what would that be? And I can give an example if the question still seems a little confusing. But what do you value?
I would say for me, I value honesty,
Mhm.
um, integrity, and confidentiality.
Confidentiality.
Yeah,
Confidentiality.
having a space where, yeah, where you can talk about things and feel like it's just, if it does go beyond the circle of trust, was it to another person who was trusted,
Mhm.
or was it to another person for other reasons?
Yes. Yes. That's a big one for me as well too. Not only honesty, but also trust. The trustworthiness or the kind of like the foundations of trust. Because if the trust is not there, it's hard to have a solid foundation on that. And by the way, Charles has participated in a lot of these activities before, where we identify values. So yeah. So is honesty present? Is integrity present? And if we were to take this conversation, to the next level, that's not the purpose of tonight. But if we were to take that conversation to the next level, what does integrity mean to you? What does integrity look like in action? Same thing with honesty. What does honesty, how do you know, or what needs to happen for there to be trust and honesty, or to feel safe enough to be honest? So thank you, Charles. Month, what is important to you as far as values?
Yeah, as soon as the question hit me, I start to wonder, is what I'm going to be saying is truly the thing I want to say it, right? Because I can sense it immediately as soon as what I'm saying going to say is lie, right?
Mhm,
Because if I've been practicing the values that I've been telling you, for sure I will be in better place.
mhm, mhm.
Because I sense that I can come up with core values as much as possible, but I can see it. I'm not practicing it in action, right? What does honesty look like in practice?
Yeah,
This is the question stuck with me, right? Because I might say I'm honest person, but not right. Under certain circumstance, I tend to fall under the pressure of circumstance, and I tell something to escape the circumstance
mhm,
and be here, right?
yeah. Yep, thank you. And thank you for your honesty with that, Hemant, too, because that's really where, especially if we're talking about universal basic income or we're talking about power alignment, being able to be, completely honest, is very difficult to do. That's when the conversation becomes higher stakes. And, what's difficult and really oftentimes the kairotic flow gets blocked, especially when it comes to politics and economic equality and all of that, because there's very little self accountability. There's very little honesty where someone could be looking at a lawsuit or somebody could be looking at some repercussions, if they do go to that deeper level of honesty. So yeah, yeah. So that's why the values conversation, not just talking about the values, because Charles and I were a part of an organization where there are values, but we haven't. We've been working on this for two almost 3 years, trying to have a conversation about how do those values look like in practice. It's very difficult to do because we're looking at more of the inner, kind of like the inner work now, because it's very easy to make a policy, it's very easy to make a rule, it's very easy to pull authority, but what's very difficult to do is to have an honest conversation about observing the values, about practicing the values. So yeah, so thank you for that, Haman.
And I think the other thing too is when your values come in conflict or come into a situation where you're kind of butting heads because somebody else feels like, oh, they're showing up with their values.
Mm-hmm,
And we, tr I think when you come into a community, we try to put that aside
mm-hmm,
or integrate that into a way where how do we make this all fit into a community value? And what does that look like in the integration for everyone? So that's kind of what I've been feeling a lot of is I felt like I felt like there were um, a lot of issues came up around how people were feeling valued or
yeah,
disvalued or unvalued. And I felt and heard a lot of blaming, but I didn't hear a whole lot of people taking responsibility for their part.
yeah,
And I feel like um, that'd be a good place to start, but I recognize that it's not an easy place to start. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. And again, that comes back to yeah, to me that comes back to being able to provide the trust. Again, the quadrants of the brain. First of all, is it safe to be honest? Do I want to be honest? And then finally, it's like, well, what is it going to take? With the curiosity, what is it going to take for me to be honest? Because my value is deeper honesty, but someone else's value might be, oh, I want to keep it light. And
yes,
that's where I don't want to go deep. I just want to keep it light. And then when those
yes,
values start to butt heads, it becomes a competitive environment again. So it's like,
yeah,
well, who's right? It's, well, nobody's right. It's just that there's a different value system, in place. There's just a different priority of value. So some people are willing to sacrifice deeper honesty for keeping it light, and some people just want the truth, whatever it is. And I think that's where, especially when we're having the conversation about universal basic income, and why the system works the way it does. There's a lot of money and a lot of funding kind of put in dark places where the transparency, that's a value of mine as well, is if there were transparency as the value, it would unlock some of that. It would kind of start to flow a little bit more. So that's where we're starting to have these conversations about the stewardship conversation of where do we place our attention. So what is important, what is sacred to us. So we have okay, so I'm going to move a little bit here into the next archetype. I also want to remind everyone as well too that anytime you watch any of the supplemental materials that I'm going to be offering on the page, anytime that you're watching that, like if you do go and watch those bridge conversations on the 2x2 algorithm book, if you watch that or if you read the book, all that time again is also time that you can log into the time bank as services you are providing. So I just want to make a note of that as I go through this. Okay, so then we go into the curator. The curator asks why. So as we're going through this conversation as part of this series is about how do we start to implement universal basic income. So the why question that comes up for me is why is it so difficult to have honest conversation? Why is it so difficult for people to come into environments where people are treated equally? Why is it so difficult to let go of power? So yeah, these are all curator questions. And yeah, before I go into some of the processes or some of the invitations with that, I'd like to ask both of you, what are some of the why questions that come up for you? The why questions are very uncomfortable, but it kind of gets to the source about how to have the energy flow or why the energy stops or stagnates. But let me put the question to both of you. What are your why questions when you think about where you're at and where it comes to what matters to you most?
I'm wondering where I'm at because sometimes
Mhm.
I think, why am I attracting these people? Or why
Mm.
are these, maybe I'm not attracting them, but why are they in my energy field? And why, why, um, why am I not able to be more, uh, I guess sometimes when you're in conversation with people, you're like, why am I the only one, or feel like I'm the only one that's saying X, Y, and Z, and everybody else is saying, oh, well, I don't see any problem. I don't know what your issue is. I don't understand. And I often question myself, like, why am I here? What am I doing?
Yeah, and the question that comes up for me is, why are there such differences? Why are there different values?
Yes.
Hmm. Yeah. And Mom, do you have any why questions that if you had the answer to them, that it would just make it so much easier? Do you have any questions that come up for you around why?
Why I am struggling to find a common ground with
Mm,
others?
mm, hmm. Yeah.
Because I tend to always struggle to have a conversation with others because mainly I'm not finding a common ground.
Hmm. Hmm.
If I don't find something common, I feel alienated one way or the other, uh,
Hmm.
or else I make them feel alienated. It
Mm,
goes both way.
yeah.
So finding a common ground being one of my biggest struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, common ground is very important because that is when you start to establish a collaboration. Because when there's not common ground, that's when it's competitive. It's kind of like, people are defending a position, and rather than defending a position, finding that common ground is where collaboration starts. So the question that comes up for me is, why does common ground inspire collaboration? Is one of the big things that come up for me. As a curator, I tested very strongly as a curator, and yeah, 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 finding that common ground, and that starts out with appreciation conversations where, it's not about inviting yet. It's not about debating. It's not about anything like that. It's not about proving a point. It's about holding the space to look for that common ground. Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the tool that I'll introduce the listener to tonight as well too is something called matrixing. And what matrixing is you come up with, you have the conversations, and sometimes it takes a while, but you have the conversations where you're starting to pull out the values. And if you're considering doing something, if you're considering something like, writing a book, or creating a business, or doing any of these things, you can matrix it out by saying, like, for instance, if I start this business, does this business, does this business help me practice deeper honesty, or will it help me practice deeper honesty? And you can measure that data by your feelings. Is it a strong yes? I do feel like I could be more deeply honest if I try to run a business, or I'm not quite sure, or no, absolutely not. There's a strong resistance to that. Would starting this business help me practice deeper integrity, or practice integrity? Well, what does integrity mean to you? So to some that might mean honesty. To some that might mean action. Do I feel inspired to take action if I do this? So if I start a business, does this inspire me to take action? Is action easy with this? So what I'll do is I'll put a resource here to a matrix that we've created before through the Karmic Margin Call project and through the bridge, and introduce you to how to have those conversations. And sometimes they're very uncomfortable. The curator's work is very uncomfortable because their role is to find out why. Their role is to get underneath the surface. Like Charles, you and I have participated in the matrixing process before, and what we have found, and this is the uncomfortable conversation for a lot of people, is that there is a general sense of respect, and there's a general sense of lightness. But when it comes to every individual feeling valued, that's the conversation that we're missing. It's like, well, what do you feel valued doing? How do we help create the environment where you do feel valued? And I think that's kind of reflective in our whole conversation about universal basic income, because when the question came up about, if you were to bring in, attract $1 million in 2 years, do you feel worthy of that? Most people do not. And that's really the barrier. And as far as I'm concerned, if somebody's watching this entire series, there's more than enough information to make universal basic income possible. There's more than enough information to start building monetary return. What is difficult, and this is the why question, is like, why do people struggle feeling valued? Why don't we feel valued? And I think that was answered in part in these conversations. Jared, in a couple of conversations, had made the observation that our culture, we feel so beat down. We feel like whether it be from a boss or a supervisor, or if you want to go back into history, to the time of slavery or indentured servitude, we can never live up to the expectations of the master. We could never live up to the expectations of those who are in charge. So it's kind of like, to me, the why, why is this not flowing easier? Why is universal basic income not easier? Is because that's, we're still kind of peeling away that cultural conditioning that says we're not enough. So yeah, so that's where I'm at with the why question. Anyone else want to add anything before we move on to the next archetype or the next phase? Okay. So then we go into Scout, and the Scout asks what? So some of the questions we discussed in our last conversation with Melanie and with Kylie was, what is possible? What do we do about this? What is it going to take to do this? So yeah, so let's bounce around a few what questions. What do you want to do? What inspires you? So yeah, let me ask you both those questions first. What do you want to do? What brings you joy? What are you inspired to do? So I'll put that to you, Charles, and to you, Hemant, and just what comes up for you. What inspires you? What do you want to do? What brings you joy? What brings you meaning?
Well, that's a tough one for me because
Mhm.
I've been having a hard time with what brings me joy. Um, I know that like taking walks in the park, I know that spending time with the family sometimes. Um, I feel joyful, like um, helping out. Like friend of mine did a blanket ministry, and I helped her with that. I felt joyful about that. I felt very grateful that I was invited to be a part of it. Um, I think sometimes I'm inspired by people who their path may not be easy, but they keep on going on. Um, to um,
What
they
I'm
live
hearing.
into their they live into who they are. They live into their integrity, and I'm inspired by that. Even though sometimes it's a very kind of what seems like a very defeating kind of place to be in. And certainly doesn't look or feel joyful at the time. Those people are inspiring because they've somehow found a way to rise above it. Um, and I think the inspiration and the joy for me are two different things.
Yeah, thank you. What I'm hearing is that you appreciate the resiliency as well. That's a word that's kind of flashing across my
Yes.
mind at the moment is resiliency and strength. The strength that it takes to be able to move through a situation that's not easy. And yeah, I resonate with that too because nothing has ever come easy for me, and I would like to have things be a little easier, but yeah, I resonate with those who are building the strength to go through things that are just not easy.
Yeah. So I am looking for more joy in my life, and
Mhm,
I make a conscious effort with that.
mhm.
And that's one of the things that I appreciate about the holiday is I've moved away from the gift giving so much and all of that so much into a place of, looking for the meaning around being joyful and being content and living an easier kind of life. And what does that mean? What does that look like? Um, inviting people into my energy and into my space where we can complement each other and not have these kind of false kind of conversations or superficial conversations. But that we can, we can have gentle, light, loving conversations, and we can have some kind of difficult conversations as well. And so I'm inspired by that, but I am looking for more joy.
Thank you. And then the exploratory questions is, what does bring you joy? What conditions are present for joy? What is joy to you? Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Month. What are you inspired by, or what is it that you are here to do? You had spoken about that earlier, that you wanted to be doing what you are meant to do, and sometimes it feels like you're not doing what you're meant to do. If you had to just put it into words, what are you here to do?
Yeah. Whenever I have a conversation with my buddy, I used to say this going to be a might be or might not conversation. This is one of the term my mentor uses to find their ideal client. But what I mean by it is it's going to be a life-changing one, right? Because whenever I have a conversation, I try to be truthful as much as possible and have fun in the conversation. That's my agenda. And this is I later came up I later came to know that seeking the truth is not always the only answer, right? We can just have fun. Truth will automatically appear on its own. So I later just start to have conversation with others like this. I will not brand it as living library conversation, but I'm just having fun with some people, and I came to know, right? That's fun, right? Having conversation with someone who has a meaningful life, right?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that you also value fun. So, what conditions are present for it to be fun? What is fun? What is fun for you? So, yeah. So I'm going to hold on to that as we go through this entire cycle. But yeah, I'm still reflecting on that sometimes, it's not so much about the deeper meaning, but how do we create a flow through fun, through enjoy, from enjoyment. And then we get back to, Charles' value of joy, wanting joy. And what I'm observing in myself is that for me, joy has to be truthful. Joy has to be honest. And I think that's where I'm kind of putting together where I find joy. And I don't find joy pretending to be something I'm not. I don't find joy in environments where people are not aware of the energy that people are feeling.